And so what had happened was God said, I paid too much for her life. I have a calling on her life. So I'm going to reach down and I'm going to snatch my child up and I'm going to shake the dust off of her. And I'm going to remind her who I called her to be, because I made you, not the enemy. He's just trying to use you because it's a whole battle thing that he thinks he can win, but I'm God, so he can't win. So he's trying to get to my people to try to make them turn on me. But I created you, so you should know that you got to come through me for everything. And that's on period. Everyone, welcome to another segment of All Things Motivated with Moët. I am Moët, and I am so glad to have you all here with me today. I'm excited to dig into another episode. I'm excited to dig into our second part of my 10-part segment called Love, Understanding the Character of God. So this episode is actually our second part. If you have not checked out the first one, please go check that out so you can understand it all together as a whole. This segment consists of 5 things that God expects from us and 5 things that God provides to us. And as I iterated in the last segment, that God provides way more than just 5 things to us. Literally, the list is endless of the things that God can provide to us. But for the sake of the 5 expectations, I matched it with 5 things that God can provide. So on our last segment, we discussed how God expects us to love Jesus Christ because Jesus Christ is God's sacrifice of love. On this segment today, we will be talking about God's second expectation from us, which is to love thy neighbor as thyself. What does that mean? Okay, what does it mean to love thy neighbor as thyself? That means that as much love that I have for myself, I'm going to love you with that same amount of love. Also meaning that I'm going to treat you how I would want to be treated. For a lot of religions other than just Christianity, it is globally known as the golden rule, to treat someone as you want to be treated. But the powerful thing about the golden rule, when being a follower and in seek of being a disciple of Christ, is that the only way to really fulfill the golden rule is to become more Christ-like, okay? Because we know, or I can just tell you honestly, I know, people be trying it. They be testing your nerves. It could be your mother. It could be your sister. It could be the woman in the Chick-fil-A line taking your order. It don't matter. People will test you. It's inevitable. And it is of you and of your integrity and of your character to have an undefendable heart and to not let them get the best of you. And how do we master that? Through prayer, through asking Jesus to help us with that, because it's not an easy thing to do. And so on today, I just want to dig deep into what it really means to love thy neighbor as thyself, as God expects from us to do. So we're going to start with scripture because, as you all know, All Things Motivated is based on faith, spirituality, and a good word. So follow me over to Romans chapter 13, verse 9 through 10. Let me know when y'all ready. Okay, I'm going to start. The commandments: you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and whatever other command there may be are summed up in this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no harm to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. May God add a blessing to the reading, hearing, and receiving of his holy word. So to place everything into context for you here, we have the Apostle Paul writing a letter to the Romans church explaining to them how now all of the 10 commandments can all be grouped into one, being to love thy neighbor as thyself. Now, if we go back to the Old Testament, the second book in the Bible, which is Exodus chapter 20, we have Moses, who has received these 10 commandments from God to give to the people, letting them know what God is expecting from them and how to live a holy life. Now we jump forward to the New Testament, where Jesus says, you know what? Group all that stuff together and let's just use this one. Love thy neighbor as thyself. That's how you can avoid everything else, by putting someone else before yourself and really making them equal to yourself. That's how you can nip everything else in the bud. Now, the reason why this is so important is because not only in that era and day and age, but also we can see this a lot now, that people get very caught up in the 10 commandments when it comes to Christianity, and most importantly, having a relationship with Christ. They get caught up in those commandments and they see where they do or they don't fit in by what it is commanding them to do. Now, let me just say that when God created these 10 commandments, it was not in dictatorship. And that's where a lot of people get it wrong. They think that they see the word command and they think that God is trying to dictate over you and tell you what to do because he's just someone who wants to boss people around. No, these commands really are for your own good, and they really ultimately are for the good of everybody, which is why all together they equal loving thy neighbor as thyself. There's a reason why God says not to murder. There's a reason why God says not to steal. You're not stealing from God. You're not murdering God. You're murdering each other. You're stealing from each other, and ultimately you're causing harm to one another, which is not acting in love. And so that is why God has these commands, even down to not committing adultery, because it's like, that is not your wife. That is not your husband. Sweetheart, reel it on in, because now not only are you hurting yourself by getting involved in some drama that don't got nothing to do with you, but you're causing chaos in someone else's home. Let's do a reality check, okay? So God is not saying this to be dictating. He's saying this to be like, look, as your father who created all this stuff, and I know how your life is going to start, I know how it's going to end, so I know how this mess that you're getting yourself into is going to start, and I know how it's going to end. So just take my advice on this, please. Like, don't get into that. And it's really like heavenly advice, like more than a command. But it is a command because that is the life that God lives. He lives a holy life, and he's not expecting us to be perfect. He knows that we can't be perfect, but he's saying, look, if you're going to be entwined and entangled with me, I'm going to need you to hold yourself to some sort of standard, because I love you, once again, because I created you, but I need you to actually be in seek of being in likeness of me. Actually try to be Christ-like. Actually try to be a child of God. And that is why loving thy neighbor as thyself is such a huge thing, because it's something that Jesus did, but it's also something that God does all the freaking time. Like, oh my goodness, the love from God is overwhelming. It's overwhelming. And so we clean it all up in the New Testament by saying, you know what, you guys are getting overwhelmed by all this stuff to the point where it's making you just not even try. Let me just explain to you what it all means. Let me just condense this to you. It means to love thy neighbor as thyself. Now, it's so powerful that the Apostle Paul is saying this, because let me fill you in real quick, just a quick little sum up in case you didn't know about Apostle Paul. His name used to be Saul, and then he changed it to Paul. So when Paul was Saul was killing Christians for fun, okay? Then he gets a vision from Jesus. He gets a visit from Jesus, and it just changes his whole life. And then Saul becomes Paul, and instead of killing Christians, he begins bringing souls into Christ and inviting people in and letting them know about the goodness of Jesus Christ. He travels all over spreading the gospel and teaching other people how to be disciples of Jesus Christ. So really, Paul's like, look, if anybody's telling you that God can forgive you, but also that he's telling you this for your own soul and your own well-being, it's me, because I was there. Okay, I'm not perfect, and that's why I love me some Apostle Paul. I really do. I love me some Apostle Paul, because he was real and he really allowed God to redeem him, and he came back fighting 10 times harder. He said, I used to kill Christians, now I'm bringing souls to Christ, and God still loves me. What? The goodness. The goodness. So basically what they're saying is, don't get caught up in all the list of the commandments. Just understand that they all mean this one thing: love thy neighbor as thyself. It's that plain and simple. But is it really that simple though? Follow me to Matthew 22 verse 37. Let me know when y'all ready. Okay, I'm gonna start. Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it: love your neighbor as yourself. May God add a blessing to the reading, hearing, and receiving of his holy word. So the thing about Jesus saying that the two commands that he has are for us to love God with all of our hearts, souls, and mind, and to love our neighbor as ourselves, is that it is impossible to do either one of those things without God. Like, it is impossible to love God without God. And it's more than just being like, oh, I pray to him all the time. Like, no, we are supposed to be seeking God. Like, every day I find myself waking up being like, God, how can I just get closer to you? How can I know you more? How can I feel your presence more in my life? How can I seek your face and not your hand? How can I just be chasing after you no matter what I got to do? 'Cause I need you more and more. I'm chasing after you no matter what I gotta do. 'Cause I need the devil's a hater. Anyway, the point is that to see God, you need God. To seek God, you need God. To love God with your heart, your mind, and I don't know, your soul. You need God to do that. Like, we are completely in a codependent, one-sided way with God. We need God for everything and he needs us for nothing. And it just is that way, but he wants it that way. And that's why he's so loved, because he's like, use me up, seek me, get to know me. I got everything you need. And I like it that you have nothing that I need. Like, God, you're so great and amazing. But then we jump to that second part where it says to love thy neighbor as thyself. Back to what I said before. People be trying it, okay? How can I love this person and they're trying it? How can I love this person and they're constantly disrespecting me? How can I love this person and they don't even show me no love? Like, what I look like? And that'd be a lot of our attitudes. What I look like. And let me tell you, I definitely struggled with that what I look like spirit, because I could cut someone off in like 0.5 seconds. Like, I had that bad. Like, you do one thing and for some reason in my mind, you just showed me your whole character. You come late, oh, you don't respect me as a person. There's no need for us to hang out anymore. Like, deuces. And really, that is such an ugly way to be. And I'm not judging anyone who is struggling with that what I look like spirit, because like I said, I've been there. But it was something that I had to realize within myself, that me conducting in that manner was an ugly way. Me acting like I was so perfect that I couldn't put up with anyone else's smallest mistake was such an ugly way to be. And then on a spiritual level, it was even worse, because what I have come to learn is that a lot of times when people are acting in ways that we don't like, it's not them. It's the spirit that they're operating in. It's the demonic spirit that is trying to attach itself to them. And so when you are, friends with someone who may have a problem with jealousy, and you just like, dang, she is always jealous of me. Like, she always want my man, she always want my job, she always want what I have, and she's a hating. Okay, no, it's not her, because God created her at the same baseline that he created you. Really, there's just a jealous spirit that is trying to attach itself to her, because that's not really what her heart is. That's not really who she is at heart. And so it's really just the enemy trying to bring her to a place of being someone that God did not call her to be. It's really the enemy trying to get her to a place of furthering herself away from God and the calling that he has on her life as much as possible. Because the enemy knows that if he makes her so corrupt, so jealous, so bitter, that there's no way that she could be a blessing to someone else the way that God may call her to be. And I don't know who this her is. This is just my example. But you could use that same example applying to jealousy, applying to talking behind somebody's back, applying to whatever it is. Like, you really have to genuinely make the decision, like, I'm going to see the good in you, and I'm going to acknowledge that anything that's bad is something that you're battling with. Like, you at heart are not that person, because you're created by God just as much as I'm created by God. And that is like such a powerful thing, because by being able to look through that spiritual lens, by being able to operate in a spiritual realm, you're then being able to make yourself unoffendable. Like, there's nothing that you can do to offend me, because when you try to, I still see your heart. I still feel like, oh, genuinely, like, oh, you're such a great person, and you don't even know how much the devil is trying to use you right now. You don't even know how much he's trying to take you out so you don't be who God called you to be. And you want to know how I know that that's in the type of business that the devil be in? Because he tried to do it to me, okay? He tried to have me thinking that I was everything but a child of God, that I could do anything but what a child of God would do, and completely attempted to pull me away from the calling that God had on my life, through making me insecure, through making me shameful, through making me have self-doubt, through making me have identity issues, just all these things that clouded my vision and clouded my ability to operate in a spirit mindset. And so what had happened was, God said, I paid too much for her life. I have a calling on her life. So I'm going to reach down and I'm going to snatch my child up, and I'm going to shake the dust off of her, and I'm going to remind her who I called her to be, because I made you, not the enemy. He's just trying to use you because it's a whole battle thing that he thinks he can win, but I'm God, so he can't win. So he's trying to get to my people to try to make them turn on me. But I created you, so you should know that you got to come through me for everything. And that's on period, okay? Not a thing can you not come through me for. And so to love me, you got to come through me. And to love the people I created, who are your neighbors, you got to come through me, because I know it's not easy. I know it's not easy, says God, to try to seek a God that you can't physically see with your eyes. So you got to seek me to know me, because I'm not flesh, I'm spirit. I'm not flesh, I'm spirit. Let that sink in. So you got to seek God to receive his spirit. You got to seek God to know his spirit. The beautiful thing about it is that God is always with us. So seeking God is not as hard as people try to make it seem. It comes by prayer. It comes by fasting. It comes by reading your word. And it comes by watching videos like these that explain the character of God, so that you understand that God is not the big guy upstairs. He's down here with us. His spirit is down here with us, and that he wants a relationship with you. He truly does. He wants you to want to get to know him. He wants to be a blessing to you. He wants to bless your life. And you can't love him without seeking him. And you can't love everyone else without seeking him. Because when you seek God, you are able to operate once again in a spirit mindset, which opens your eyes to things that you cannot see in a fleshly mindset. Especially when we're operating in the world, in the things of the world, and all these things that, people call it culture, but I don't know how I feel about that word culture, because I feel like culture's culture. Like, I'm black, we got culture. You're white, you got culture. You're Indian, you're indigenous. Everyone got their own culture. But the world is already a wicked place on its own. So we're influenced by being in this world. We are in this world, but not of the world, as the word says. So we have to operate in the spirit. You have to be operating in God to be able to operate in a spiritual mindset, and to be able to make the decision to say, I'm going to work towards having an unoffendable heart. Nothing you can do can offend me. And I'm going to repay the spirit that is trying to attach itself to you by loving you with kindness. Because you see, the thing is, this is what the enemy wants. He wants for someone to offend you, right? And then for you to get mad. So then that spirit then can jump onto you. And then before you know it, you're going to be transferring that to someone else. And then that's how we get that whole hurt people. But when you make the decision to not be a hurt person, then you're breaking that line right there. There's not someone else for me to transfer this hurt to, because I wasn't hurt by that person. Because when that person tried to hurt me, when the spirit on that person tried to hurt me, I was able to identify that it wasn't that person. It was a spirit trying to attach itself to that person and trying to further that person away from who God has created them to be. Now, that's why I said, but is it that easy though? Is it that plain and simple though? Because no, it is not. It's something that you wake up every day and you make the decision to try to work on. It's something that I pray on. Like, oh my goodness. In subtle ways, buttons are being pushed, and I'm trying not to make it a thing because these people don't know me. They don't know that these are buttons that they're pushing. So I just need to understand that for them to even be of this type of way, that they're operating in something. It could be anxiety, it could be control, it could be fear. Those are all spiritual things that the enemy uses to try to break you away from your path. And so I could allow those things to try to attach itself to me, but I make the decision to say, you know what, at heart, they're a great person. At heart, they have really good intentions. It's just the fact that they're not operating in a spiritual mindset. So they're allowing worldly things to affect their ability to operate without fear. They're allowing worldly things to make them think that they need to have control over everything instead of being out of control and letting God take control. The beautiful thing about it is that God knows that we are going to struggle with this sometimes. The only person that did this perfectly was Jesus when he came down to earth, okay? And Jesus had it so good that he loved people more than he loved himself. He wasn't loving his neighbor as himself. He was loving his neighbor more than himself, okay? There was a whole gap. Jesus, how he treated himself. Jesus, how he treated his neighbor. Jesus was the definition of being selfless to the max, okay? To the max. If you guys won't mind, follow me to 1 John 3, verse 16 through 18, okay? Just bear with me. Stick with me here, okay? I promise I'm going somewhere. Let me know when y'all ready. Okay, I'm gonna start. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. If anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? Dear children, let us not love with our words or speech, but with actions and in truth. May God add a blessing to the reading, hearing, and receiving of his holy word. That was a good scripture right there. That was a good word. That was beautiful. It highlighted the sacrifice that Jesus made by laying down his life for us. Once again, if you didn't catch the last segment, love is more sacrifice than it is compromise, okay? Jesus laid down his life out of love for us. That was a sacrifice, not a compromise. Then we jump down to how we are to love one another. If we see someone else in need and we got what they need, but we feel no pity on them, how is the love of God in us? He says, dear children, let us not love by our words, by what we say, but by our actions. So don't think you're doing nobody no favor or showing no love just because you got something to say. What is it that you got to do? Where's the action? Where's the action? Because that is how someone can tell that you are operating in a spiritual mindset. I'm sorry, I'm going somewhere else with this, but I just got to say this because there is this way that people have become accustomed to treating homeless people that really rub me the wrong way. For one, why are you wondering what they're doing with the money that you gave them? Why? If you cared that much about the money, then you should have kept it in your pocket because you're not giving because you really care. It's on your duty to just be the blessing. And as you bless others, God is going to bless you. Why are you keeping tabs on that? Why? Why though? Like, please. And I conclude. This whole message today was not about self-hate. It's not saying to allow people to walk over you. It's not saying to forget about yourself or to put yourself on the back burner. It's saying to be selfless because God expects you to be selfless because that is how God loves you. And when you are trying to have a relationship with God, when you are trying to have a relationship with Jesus Christ, the goal is to try to be more Christ-like. You cannot be Christ. That is one job and it has already been taken and fulfilled and done. But we can try to be like him. And as we are trying to be like him, we are pleasing God with our actions and we're being a blessing to other people. Love heals all. Like, love heals all. Love covers a multitude of all sins. Save a life with some love. Save a life with some love, not a like. So I finish with saying this. We honor God by loving one another because love is more about sacrifice than it is about compromise. So it is not a you treat me nice and I'll treat you nice. It's a I'm going to sacrifice my kindness even if you do not treat me nice, for the simple fact that that is what Jesus did when he died on the cross for me. That is what God does when he forgives my mistakes every single day, because I do something wrong every day. I don't know about y'all, but I know I for sure do. I just like I say, God forgive me for all my sins, those I know and those I don't know, because I'm sure I did something wrong. I'm just sure I am. I'm just sure I did. And so allow yourself to be pleasing before the sight of God by accepting his expectations to love one another, to love your neighbor as yourself, because he created us all and he didn't create us to disrespect one another. And so that is God's expectation, that again is more doing to you than it is doing for him, because it is all in an attribute of your character and how you treat people. But it also allows you to actually be a blessing to someone else. And you'll notice that when you're able to bless someone else, it'll bless you right back. The act of it. will bless you right back. To know that you can look at yourself with pride and know that you did something that was pleasing in God's eyes. So I want to thank you all for joining me tonight for this segment. Join me again next week for the third part of this 10-part segment called Love, Understanding the Character of God, where we will be talking about the third expectation that God has for us, which is to honor our body, the holy temple that God has given us. And once again, we not talking that surface stuff, we getting in deep. So I would love to see you all there. Keep in God, keep encouraged, and keep in faith in all ways, always. I love you all, and I hope you have a great night.